The University of Cambridge just came out with some research that shows us how we can reduce our consumption of processed foods, more specifically crisps and chocolate bars. Now, the great thing about their research is that we don't actually have to do anything in order to reduce our consumption of these processed foods. In fact, it's society that's actually going to help us if they take this research on board and want to deal with the problem with obesity that's happening in our society, the epidemic that we're experiencing. Hopefully in the next couple of years, this is going to be implemented and we are going to be well on our way to a healthier society. But first, before we get into the research, first we got to analyze the supermarkets and what role they play in this obesity epidemic. And the obesity epidemic is really something that we could all fall prey to if we're not careful, because if you haven't noticed already, in our environment, processed foods are everywhere. Every shop you go in, the majority of the shops, they are going to have processed foods stacked everywhere, and most of the time they're going to be by the till, especially if you go into a corner store. Quickly, you go in, you buy something, boom, chocolate bars are everywhere in front of you, crisps are everywhere in front of you, and if you have a sweet tooth, or if you quite like crisps like myself, you are often going to be given into these temptations. Now, what we want to do is we want to figure out how to avoid these temptations. That's the best thing to do, and this is what the research helps us figure out, how to avoid these temptations. But going back to the supermarkets, when you walk in the door of a supermarket, especially in the UK, now I'll always remember come Christmas time in the UK, there's this Tesco's opposite my mum's place. And when you walk in the door, the first thing you see immediately in front of you are offers stacked right there. And the offers aren't for fruits or vegetables, they're for crisps, chocolates, and biscuits. 2 for 1, buy one, get one free, all things like 50% off. And obviously, I think we all like chocolates, biscuits, or crisps, one of those. And so when you see an offer, it's a bargain that triggers loads of things in your brain that push you to want to pick this box of crisps up or box of cookies up or whatever it may be, put in your basket and purchase it. Because who wouldn't want to get 2 items for the price of 1? I know I would. But this is the problem. This is what we're battling against all the time, and it's quite hard. And now we get past that. So for example, we managed to just walk by it and we're like, nah, I'm not going to pick this up. The next battle is when you're walking through the supermarket looking for your items. And if you don't have a shopping list, then it's going to be a battle that I'm not too sure we can win. Because everywhere you look, there's some form of advertising. There's bright colors, there's nice packaging, there's brand. There's also health claims put on these processed foods sometimes that say, if you eat this consistently, you'll have more energy or you'll think clearer. Trust me, Kellogg's did some crazy stuff back in the day, saying that if you ate their breakfast cereal, your kid would perform 15% better than the average kid just because he ate, I can't remember what cereal they were promoting at the time, but they got sued for that. They didn't get sued much, but that ad ran for a couple of years, believe it or not. So we're battling all of these advertisements of these big food companies. And none of them are doing us any good because they're really highly processed. And you know, when we eat processed foods, especially the ones that are high in salt, sugar, and fat, we tend to get fat. And this is what's contributing to the obesity epidemic. So the research that Cambridge conducted is truly eye-opening, a little bit obvious, but very eye-opening. And I'm going to read you a few passages. So, removing sweets from checkouts linked to dramatic fall in unhealthy snack purchases. Now, this is the thing. We're talking about checkouts here. What I just mentioned before was you come in the door, so right off the bat, you get in the supermarket, you're getting bombarded with advertisements and promotions and product placement to make you buy, to increase the purchases of these specific products that are highly processed and they're not very healthy. So policies aimed at removing sweets and crisps from checkouts could lead to a dramatic reduction to the amount of unhealthy food purchased to eat on the go and a significant reduction in that purchase to take home, suggests new research led by the University of Cambridge. Okay, that's relatively obvious. But if it was that obvious, why was this not implemented before? Especially every time we switch on the news, we see something about how unhealthy society is today. So the study published in the Journal of PLOS Medicine found that 17% fewer small packages of sugary confectionery, chocolate and potato crisps were bought and taken home from supermarkets immediately after introducing a checkout food policy. Even more dramatically, 76% fewer purchases were bought and eaten on the go from supermarkets with checkout food policies compared to those without. 76%. That is insane. And anything that gives you a 76% increase, something that's beneficial, is a no-brainer. If I could do something that was going to get me 76% more likely to exercise, you'd bet your ass I'd be doing that. And quite funnily enough, there are a few things that you can do to do that, but we're not going to get into that today. So supermarket checkouts provide a unique location for prompting purchases, as all customers have to pass through them to pay and may spend considerable time in queues. However, the majority of food at supermarket checkouts could be considered unhealthy. Now, I don't think you've ever seen an apple or an orange, sometimes bananas though. But those are the only two things that you really see by the till. The rest are chocolates, crisps, sweets, protein bars. Those may appear to be healthy, but check the sugar content. They're quite intense. Over the last decade, many UK supermarket groups have made voluntary commitments to remove or limit unhealthy foods at the tills or to provide healthy options. And thanks to this is where the research was taken from. Because luckily enough, some of the supermarkets were actually game to take these processed foods away from the tills just to see what would happen. And out of the 9 major supermarkets, 6 actually took action. So shout out Tesco's, Asda, Sainsbury's, nice one. So many snacks picked up at the checkout may be unplanned impulse buys, and the options tend to be confectionery, chocolate, or crisps, says Dr. Jean Adams from the Center of Diet and Activity Research at the University of Cambridge. Several supermarkets have now introduced policies to remove these items from their checkouts, and we wanted to know if this had any impact on people's purchasing choices. So firstly, the team looked at how purchases of less healthy common checkout foods brought home changed following the implementation of checkout policies. They used data from over 30,000 UK households from 12 months before to 12 months after implementation. The researchers found that implementation of a checkout food policy was associated with an immediate 17% reduction in purchases. After a year, shoppers were still purchasing over 15% fewer of the items compared to when no policy was in place. So immediately after the implementation was put into place, 70% fewer purchases. Fast forward a year, there is no more implementation of this food policy, and still 15% fewer purchases are made. That's amazing. That's actually quite shocking. So next, they looked at data from 7,500 shoppers who recorded food bought and eaten on the go during 2016 and 2017 from supermarkets with and without checkout food policies. On-the-go purchases are often impulsive and can be the result of children pestering you or bad moods, mood swings, or whatever it may be. Some emotional distress that we need to kind of soothe, so we do it with food. I mean, that's the problem about food. It's very comforting, so it makes us feel good, but on the flip side, it makes us fat. So we need to kind of figure that out, really. So the researchers found that shoppers made 76 fewer annual purchases of less healthy common checkout foods from supermarkets with checkout food policies compared to those without. 76%. 76%. That is ridiculously high. Imagine you had something that increased your chances of exercising from up to 76% just by doing one simple thing. You can bet your ass we'd all be doing that. If it gave you 76% more chance of doing something, 76. That is some flabbergasting stuff right there. So our findings suggest that removing sweets and crisps from the checkout, supermarkets can have a positive influence on the types of purchases their shoppers make, says Dr. Katrine Ezleskov, the study's first author. This would be a relatively simple intervention with the potential to encourage healthier eating. Many of these purchases may have been impulse buys, so if the shopper doesn't pick up a chocolate bar at the till, it may be one less chocolate bar that they consume. Now just think about this. Imagine if on a daily basis, or at least 5 times a week, we pick up a chocolate bar or a packet of crisps or a packet of sweets or something as an impulse buy. Every time we go for our lunch or to grab something quick from the supermarket, we're faced with this aisle of ridiculous calorie bombs. So I'd say each product is around 200 calories, let's say. So if each product, from crisps to chocolates to sweets, are 200 calories, and we have about 5 times a week we give into these temptations, that's 1,000 extra calories a week. There are 52 weeks in a year. That's 52,000 extra calories that we've consumed simply through impulse buys. Now imagine the amount of fat that is. I think in a pound of fat there's 3,500 calories. So that would be about 17 pounds of fat. Now, I don't think that we're going to be putting on these 17 pounds of fat at the end of the year, but it's highly possible. It just depends how active we are. If we're very inactive and sedentary and we work an office job where we sit in front of a computer day in, day out, rarely moving or only moving to walk to the toilet, well then you could bet that we're going to be stacking on the fat at a rapid and alarming rate. And this is what we're seeing in society everywhere. Obesity levels and obesity rates are skyrocketing. Even in children, this is getting out of control. So luckily enough, the University of Cambridge is doing something about it, and they're exposing how we can live healthier lives simply by doing one little thing. And it's not even asking much. The only thing it's asking is for supermarkets to look out for our best interests. Now, I don't know what the food industry thinks about this because they're going to be losing out massively, but what's more important? Making that cheddar, making that money, or helping our fellow brothers out live healthier lives, lose weight, be happier? I think it's a no-brainer. So, it may seem obvious that removing unhealthy food options from the checkout would reduce the amount that people buy. But it is evidence such as this that helps build the case for government interventions to improve unhealthy behaviors, adds Dr. Adams. One such intervention might be to introduce nutritional standards for checkout food as suggested in the government's recent childhood obesity plan. Such a government-led policy might prove attractive to supermarkets as it would provide a level playing field across the sector. That would be helping everybody out. But we'll see. This was the information that I wanted to share with you today. This was the research that I found fascinating. I mean, if you've read the book Salt, Sugar, Fat, I keep banging on about it. It's an amazing book. Now, if you're addicted to food, if you find yourself really giving into processed food all the time, I'd highly recommend this book because it really does lay out all the secrets of the food industry, from the production of the food to how it's engineered to make us more addicted to it, to the advertising to manipulate us to buy it, to how they actually treat their staff in, if you want to know how the staff are treated in fast food joints in America, read the book Fast Food Nation. That goes into more hardcore depth. That's more about the practices of the big food companies. And it's quite shocking. When I read these 2 books, it just put me off processed food. Straight up. I just didn't want to eat it anymore because there's so many things, there's so many factors, and if you think about the environment as well, it's not really doing the environment any good, especially if we're consuming meat all the time. It's destroying forests, it's polluting our waters, it's killing us, it's insane. So this was the research I wanted to share with you. Now, I found it quite interesting, insightful, eye-opening, hopeful as well, because if the University of Cambridge is coming out with these kinds of studies, then who knows what's going to happen in the future. It really does look good. And if the supermarkets pay attention to this research, and hopefully government does something about it as well, and they start encouraging, so I guess money will always win, so they're going to have to pretty much force them, because if the food companies are putting money in the pockets of the right people, then there's always going to be food at the checkouts. But I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully this information is taken on board, because if you think about it, there were 3 statistics that really hit home. And the first one was, as soon as the food policy was put into place, there was an immediate drop in purchases, 17% drop. This was in a year. And after they've taken that food policy away, there was still a 15% drop. So the lack of purchases continued. No one wanted to buy these foods because they were trained for the previous year that they didn't actually need them, and these impulse buys, well, they're making us fat, is pretty much what's going on. And then 76% less purchases were done for impulse buys. So this is people on the go for lunch. They pop into the supermarket, they pop into the little corner store, and they get a sandwich. And just because the processed foods weren't there at the till, they had nothing to buy, so they didn't buy them. So that's a 76% reduction in purchases, which is absolutely crazy. So just think about that. Take those calories I was talking about before. Let's say it's 52,000 calories a year extra just from these impulse buys. Now take 76% off that. Now there's going to be a little bit of mathematics for me here, which is going to be intense, but let's do it. 52,000. Let's take 10% of that, which is 5,200. And you times that by 8, that's 40,000. Let's say about 43,000. So then you do 52 minus 43, which gives you 9. That's 9,000 calories you're left with. I mean, if you're going to be reducing your calories by 43,000 calories a year, I think that's something that I would want to get involved with for sure, because the amount of fat that equates to is ridiculous. There's about 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. So you do the math. Boom. If you're obese or severely overweight, this is something that I would imagine would be quite interesting, I would think. But anyway, the numbers don't lie. That's all laid out right there. And I hope that something gets done about this. I mean, that's all we can hope for, because if we keep going in the same direction that we're going in, I don't really see society standing a chance. Like, multiple people are saying that society is diseased and we're not really doing anything. We're not trying to cure the cause of the problem. We're just dealing with the symptoms. And if we deal with the symptoms, the cause of the problem is always going to be there, so we're always going to be having to deal with the symptoms. So we're not really fixing anything. And that's the issue. So that's the research. Hopefully this video was helpful. And if you like this video, give it a like. Don't forget to comment and subscribe.